Konnichiwa! Welcome back to today's episode of Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks. That's me. Coming off a short hiatus, but I assure you today I am bringing you the very best of domestic Kieran, and we're going to be looking at a few exciting projects coming up in the future. First things first, I just want to apologize for the hiatus. I had some changes where I'm now a lot busier day to day than I previously was, which has actually led me to make a few difficult decisions regarding Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks. So I'm really happy with how the show has progressed and how it's gotten off the ground. I'm very, very proud of the work that I've put in and the reaction that I've seen from the public. I think it's a winning formula, and Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks is something that I intend to always do throughout my life, similar to my music career. With that being said, I am about to move and the situation is a little unknown. I'm not sure if the place that I move into will have an appropriate space for me to record Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks. I'm very hopeful that it will, but because that is all coming up, I have decided to make this episode the penultimate episode of Season 1 of Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks. The next episode will be the season finale, and I intend to spare no expense and pull out all the stops to make that as exciting and invigorating as I possibly can. And although that is not the way I intended for things to go from the start, I do think it is fitting for what I am trying to do in the future. Speaking of which, it gives me great pleasure to announce that I will be making a movie. At this stage of the production, there's not too much I can reveal as yet, but I do have this promotional poster. And it's basically going to be a 90s/early 2000s style VHS camcorder bicycle edit, similar to late 90s and early 2000s skateboarding and BMX videos that some of us would have grown up watching. The movie will be looking to highlight the fixed gear scene in Vancouver and really put on the map some of the world-class riding that we have available to us, and kind of give a shout out to some really good friends that I've made whilst living here, because I do believe the scene here is at least as good, if not better, than the scene in most North American cities, and I think that we could really be the new MASH or Macaframa. And so I'm excited to make that happen, and as such I'm working on not just Crisis but a lot of creative projects to really bring the Vancouver scene to the forefront of public perception. So stay tuned for that. As I said, there will be the season finale of Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks, and there will definitely be future episodes because I think it's a really cute, fun thing that I've been doing, and I really like interacting with you guys about the races, and it just fills my heart with I. With all that said, today we are looking at the Winticket Cup, which is a tournament that took place at the Kawasaki City Urban Bank. Winticket is kind of a broadcasting company that allows gambling. It's one of many such outfits they have in Japan, and they like DMM are a sponsor for a lot of smaller events. So this is pretty grassroots level Kaden racing. It is A-class men and women. And I've taken the best 3 races from the entire tournament, so the entire 3-day schedule. And I also will be bringing you 2 crashes that were pretty cool to see in the races that I'm not covering. So thank you very much for listening patiently to the news section. I will be giving you guys updates as soon as possible. But with that said, let's get into the first race of today's show. Alright, thank you for joining me at the Kawasaki Urban Bank. We are coming out of the fighter's gate now. Things look immensely tense. Number 5 doing some cool little stretches, some wind-ups, and an awesome little tunnel for the riders to come through as they enter the track. We see a public use athletics track available on the inner circle of the velodrome, and we come up to line for a 7-rider race. Number 1, Umibara Taiji, Shizuoka, 81. Number 2, Makoto Yoshikawa, Kanagawa, 86. Number 3, Kenji Kimoto, Osaka, 69. Number 4, Yusuke Nakai, Osaka, 100. Number 5, Ryota Aoki, Gunma, 89. Number 6, Yukio Funayama, Niigata, 113. Number 7, Kichi Uzumita, Chiba, 59. Lining up, ready for launch. Number 1 does a last minute prayer. And we're off to a ripping start with the big ones. Kawasaki City, everybody. A lot of people know it for the motorcycles. Also a city. Now, I've done this cool little overlay thing in the top of the screen there with everybody's translated names. I think this is going to improve the show a lot. I do think I've made them a little big for this episode. I'm going to make them smaller next time. But I do think that is a step in the right direction. It'll allow me to kind of call the names. So we're getting settled in here. We have Taiji, Yoshikawa, Kimoto, Nakai, Aoki, Funayama, and Uzumita. We're coming into 2 laps to go. Number 5 is taking a little whip on the track there. Number 6 looks like they're ready to hit it. That's Funayama. And number 5 on his wheel. Yoshikawa, number 2, eager to launch also. And number 4 jumps up to the wheel of number 5 there with number 3 on his wheel. There's a little bit of a gap back to number 2, but he's decided to keep the momentum. Coming into the last lap, that's Yoshikawa coming with a big burst off the front of the group here. Opens a huge gap instantly. Number 6 is not able to match pace at all, and you can see looking down at the stem, he's pretty desperate at this point, and I think the rest of them are realizing that they're not going to be able to get this back. We have a tailwind coming into the final stretch, and you see he even extends the gap there and is able to take a very clean, probably the cleanest victory in Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks history. Absolutely awesome ride from Yoshikawa there. And we see this again. Huge gap. You see it kind of gets a little tighter in the back because you get a little acceleration as you wind around. But he opens it up again once he hits that tailwind section. And it's only in the closing meters of the race do they even look like they're going to be able to catch up. Number 3 manages to take second place, with number 5 in third, and it's all pretty close for the rest of them. Considering it was only 7-rider race, everybody finished pretty close, except for, of course, number 2. Alright, we got number 6 launching with number 1 getting boxed in there. Number 3 looking to make that gap difficult for them. Pushes on number 1. Number 5 goes flipping over top. Let's take a second look at that. This is on the VHS replay. We see number 1's trying to sneak up the inside there. Number 5 has nowhere to go, just flips straight over top of him. And whose fault is it? So we see number 3 preemptively cuts down on number 1. And I don't think it's really his fault. I think number 1 just wasn't able to maintain his balance. See, he was pretty aggressive with the shoulder check there. Alright, let's take a look at this race. Also an A-class event, rolling out of the gate once again. Number 1, Sumihiro Nomura, Kanagawa, 82. Number 2, Masato Oshima, Fukushima, 94. Number 3, Kimitoshi Inoue, Miyagi, 93. Number 4, Fumito Sakai, Wakayama, 85. Number 5, Koji Tanaka, Shizuoka, 103. Number 6, Kenji Kimoto, Osaka, 69. Number 7, Aruto Ito, Hyogo, 113. Alright, ready to whip it out with the lads, eagerly anticipating the start of the event, down into the B123 drops, and it's action time. Number 2, off to a ripping start. Eagerly getting up to the wheel of that pace setter, we have Nomura, Oshima, Inoue, Sakai, Tanaka, Kimoto, and Ito, which is a wonderful, wonderful place and is also very, very close in proximity to the Hiratsuka Kaiden track, which we just can't seem to stay away from. Coming into 2 laps to go, we got number 3 on the pace setter well. Nanaban, that's number 7, comes up around the outside with the charge, but isn't hitting it straight away, just kind of wants to see what's about to happen. Number 5 sprinting on the outside with number 1 eagerly waiting on his wheel. Number 6 sees that a gap is about to open up and is sitting on number 4, but number 3 decides to take it up and over, and they come screaming down the back, actually that's the front straight, screaming down the front straight, coming into a lap to go, and number 3 is absolutely charging it with number 2 on his wheel, and they have managed to open a gap also. So number 5 with number 1 on his wheel is unfortunately not making any grounds to come back, and number 7 is dropping off the wheel of number 1, at least it was in the back straight. Number 2 just has a little bit more gas to come around number 3, but a huge Senko effort from number 3 there. Very, very impressive, launching with about 600 meters. You can see he's absolutely exhausted. Absolutely put it all on the line there, and that's what we like to see. He's the true champion. Absolutely dead. So hissing off the front with number 2 on his wheel. Number 2 just looking over his shoulder repeatedly. Can't believe the gap he's got, and he has this very asymmetric sprinting style where he seems to get more gas off of one leg, and that is enough to pull him up alongside a very exhausted Inoue. What a cool race. So we really see the that tailwind paying big dividends for the riders. It seems a long sprint is pretty favored on this track, especially if you have a wheel to come off. You see number 2 was shielded the entire time and then only had to make an effort in the tailwind, and that was able to net him the victory. So very, very important to play in the wind. So we see number 7 tries to take a charge with number 4 and number 1 on his wheel. Number 3 is not having any of that, does a huge sweep to try and push number 7 wide, and is pretty successful that time. And then comes again, number 7 just completely takes himself out. You see he kind of hit his head on the stem bar combo there. And they're going to carry on as usual. It's just how things go down. Yeah, but massive crash. Let's take a look at that on the VHS. Alright, so we see number 7 trying to come up the inside. Number 3 with a big sweep just completely wrecks him. And you can see just by where number 7's arms are in comparison to the head and shoulders of number 3, he just wasn't able to keep his handlebars straight. Tragic. So our final event of the show is going to be this Girls Karen's race, which is the Girls Karen final from the Kawasaki Winticket Cup tournament. So this one is actually for the biggest prize available to these competitors in the tournament, and it's a really cool race. So let's check it out. Our class race makes a long-awaited return to Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks. We have missed it, definitely. We see number 7 has a frame that has dump written on the down tube there. I feel like maybe something got lost in translation. It's both adorable and a little embarrassing. Number 1, Utakume, Shizuoka, 116. Number 2, Ryu Ota, Saitama, 112. Number 3, Fumi Okui, Tokyo, 16. Number 4, Nadome Suglura, Aichi, 118. Number 5, Hikari Arakawa, Ibaraki, 110. Number 6, Miho Aoki, Saitama, 118. Number 7, Megumi Kato, Aomori, 112. About to start the race for the women's Keirin final. Pace setter rides across the line, and it's a bit of a sprint out of the gate. Number 5 looks like they're going to get that wheel and allow number 3 and number 6 to come up in front. So we have Kume, Ota, Oki, Suglura, Arakawa, Aoki, and Kato in today's race. This one I was the most lazy with the text. See, Arakawa is pretty smushed. I'll put more effort into it next time. This was kind of a flying by the seat of my pants move, but it's good to get it out here. Also, the fact that the bar is pink has nothing to do with the fact that these are women. It was a pure coincidence. Starting to move with 2 laps to go. We have Aoki out on the outside a little bit, and trying to get onto the wheel of number 1 it seems. And pace setter will pull off in about 100 meters with number 3 ready to face the wind. She's looking underneath her, not really looking around too much, just content just to slowly ramp up the pace. Number 7 starts her sprint out wide and gets pushed a little bit by number 6, but she is pretty desperate to get up to the front of the race as the pace is starting to heat up. But number 3 just does a great job of just rolling up that pace, starting to open a little gap now. Number 1 isn't able to hold up onto the wheel of number 5, or is that the case? Because now she's coming around the outside as we come onto the home straight. Remember, there's that tailwind, almost crashes, but number 2, who we weren't really paying much attention to, just managed to sneak up the outside and take that, which was a very crafty little outside sprint. We weren't really paying much attention to her, we were more focused on what was happening on the inside, but she slowly managed to get up on terms almost invisibly. We see her comes up off the wheel of number 1, gets forced a little bit wide by all the calamity going on in the middle there, and just manages to have more speed coming across the line. You could say that as a result of all that contact, that she was able to just maintain speed up until the end. But very, very good race from her. Exciting stuff to see, and once again an echelon finish in a girls' Keirin race is always a pretty exciting sight. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining me for today's episode of Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks. I hope you enjoyed the races and all the events that we covered today. The next show is going to be the season finale, and I am intending to go out with a bang. I'm very excited to be looking at the greatest Keirin races in history. So we're going to be looking at some VHS quality stuff with some real legends of the game. I'm thinking I'm going to make it longer too, just to give you guys kind of a feature-length season finale. I think you deserve it. You've all been very, very good to me. We will also be talking about the new Pist 6 tournament that is launching to much fanfare in Japan. It's going to be a new tournament racing UCI Keirin on indoor tracks, more akin to the Olympics, but it's still going to be a local team. But they are also inviting all of the best track sprinters throughout the world to come and take part in this tournament. I've watched a few of the races. I'm not going to give away my thoughts just yet, but if you want to do some pre-reading, I would check that out before the next episode. And we're going to talk briefly about that. But as for today, thank you so much for joining me for the penultimate episode of Season 1 of Back to the Banks with Piggy Banks. I've been Piggy Banks. It's been a great day to be with y'all. And I wish you safe riding out there and good fortune. ありがとうございます。
を呼んでいた。しかし、自粛体制の競輪は1日10レースという制限の中、女子競輪は低配当が続き、車検としての魅力が失われ、存続していくことができなかったのである。